We were cruising down the highway, headed to a family reunion in Canada, just another Saturday with the kids bickering over invisible lines in the back seat. My SUV was packed with snacks, goldfish crackers, juice boxes, the works, and my coffee was still warm in the cup holder. The plan was simple: drive a few hours across the border, their neck pillows bobbing with every bump. It was ordinary, almost boring, exactly how I liked it. I was driving as always, because my husband's last-second braking drives me nuts. And motion sickness is my unwanted superpower. Everything felt predictable, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, my husband's face went pale, his voice low and shaky. "Turn the car around.
Now,"
he whispered. I laughed, thinking it was a bad joke, but his eyes weren't kidding.
"Why?"
I asked. "Just do it," he said, his tone sharp, urgent. Something in me clicked. I trusted him, took the next exit, and veered off the highway. That split-second decision changed everything. The highway stretched endlessly before us, but the moment I took that exit, the world felt smaller, tighter, like the air itself was holding its breath. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, as I navigated the SUV down a quiet, unfamiliar road. The kids in the back seat, ages 5, 7, and 10, were starting to stir, their cartoon forgotten. "Are we going the wrong way?" my middle child, Ellie, asked. Her voice tinged with that mix of curiosity and annoyance only a 7-year-old can muster. I forced a smile into my voice. "We forgot something, sweetie," I said, the lie slipping out too easily.
"What?"
she pressed. "I'll tell you later," I replied, my eyes flicking to my husband, Mark, in the passenger seat. He was silent, staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. The man who once put out a kitchen fire with the calm of a bomb squad tech was radiating tension, and it was contagious. My stomach churned, a knot of unease growing with every mile. "Want to tell me what's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone light, like I was asking about dinner plans. He shook his head, barely perceptible. "Just drive," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "Drive where?" I pushed, irritation creeping in. "Anywhere but there," he replied, and that was it. "No explanation." Just those 4 words that felt like a brick dropped into my lap. The kids went quiet again, sensing the shift in the air, their bickering replaced by uneasy glances. I kept driving, the road flanked by dense trees that seemed to lean in, watching. 20 minutes passed, maybe more, in a silence so thick it pressed against my chest. My mind raced, but still carried that edge of certainty. I spotted a narrow access road, barely marked, the kind of place you'd miss unless you were looking for it, or running from something. I signaled, turned, and pulled onto the gravel shoulder, the tires crunching in a way that felt too loud in the quiet. Mark unbuckled his seatbelt. "Stay here," he said, not looking at me, already halfway out the door. He walked to the back of the SUV, and I heard the soft click of the trunk opening. My pulse quickened, a heavy, uneven rhythm that made my palms sweat. I sat frozen, staring at the dashboard. The digital clock glowing 10:47 a.m. It felt wrong, too normal for whatever was happening. The kids were engrossed in their tablet again, oblivious. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break. A minute later, Mark was at my window, his face unreadable. "Can you come out?" he asked, his voice soft but firm, like he was asking me to sign a contract I hadn't read. "Why?" I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "I need you to see it," he replied, and there was something in his tone, tired, resolute, that pulled me out of the driver's seat. My legs felt unsteady as I stepped onto the gravel, the cool morning air doing nothing to calm the heat rising in my chest. Mark led me to the back of the SUV, the trunk still open, and I braced myself for, I didn't know what. A flat tire? A forgotten bag? Something mundane to explain the last half hour of madness? He didn't say a word, just pointed at the red duffel bag my dad had handed me days ago, the one I'd tossed in without a second thought. Mark unzipped it, folded back a sweatshirt, and there it was. My breath caught, sharp and painful, like I'd been punched. Tucked between layers of clothes, stuffed into a small toiletry bag, were plastic packets, sealed, unmistakable. Not medicine. Not vitamins. Something that screamed handcuffs, courtrooms, and leaves unraveled. I stared, my brain struggling to process what my eyes already knew. These weren't ours.
They couldn't be.
But they were in our car. Who'd guilt-tripped me over school fees and family loyalty, had used us as mules. The realization wasn't immediate fear. That would come later. It was slower, heavier, like the ground beneath me had dissolved, leaving me falling through the life I thought I knew. I didn't touch the bag. I didn't need to. My eyes met Mark's, and he didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't need to. The silence between us said everything: betrayal, disbelief, and the sickening clarity of what we'd narrowly escaped. I took a step back, the gravel crunching under my sneakers, sounding distant, like it belonged to someone else's story. My hands shook, my heartbeat a wild drum in my ears. I wasn't scared yet, not fully. That would hit later, in waves. Right now, I was drowning in something else, grief, maybe, or the shattering of a trust one hadn't even realized I still held. My parents had always been flawed, manipulative, but this was a line I never imagined they'd cross. They'd put their own daughter, their son-in-law, their grandchildren at risk, all for what? Money? A hustle? The same reckless game they'd played their whole lives? Mark zipped the bag closed, the sound sharp in the stillness, and let the trunk fall shut with a soft thud. We stood there, the forest looming around us, the kid's cartoon faintly audible from inside the car. I looked at him, searching for words, but all I managed was a thin, "They did this." He nodded, his face grim. "With the kids," I added, my voice breaking. Another nod. I tilted my head back, staring at the sky. Blue, cloudless, infuriatingly perfect. It felt like a betrayal, too. That the world could look so normal when mine was cracking apart. "How did you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the closed trunk. "Something wasn't right," he said finally, his words measured. The way they handed us the bag, their smiles, felt off. He shrugged, like it was instinct, not genius, but I knew better. He'd seen what I'd been trained to ignore. I walked back to the driver's seat, my legs heavy, and slid inside. The kids didn't notice, lost in their show, but I felt their presence like a weight. They were safe for now, but the what-ifs clawed at me. What if I hadn't listened? What if we'd hit the border? I started the engine, the hum grounding me just enough to keep moving. Mark got in, and we drove, directionless, the red duffel in the trunk like a ticking bomb we couldn't outrun. As the SUV rolled down that quiet road, the weight of the red duffel in the trunk pressed against my mind, heavier than any cargo I'd ever carried. My hands were steady on the wheel, but inside, I was unraveling. The image of those plastic packets burned into my brain. How had it come to this? My parents had turned our family road trip into a trap. To make sense of it, I had to go back, way back, to the roots of the family I'd spent years trying to hold together. Growing up, my parents were obsessed with appearances. Not wealth, not stability, but the look of success. Our house in suburban Ohio always had the best Christmas lights, perfectly aligned, and a fridge stocked with 5 kinds of mustard, as if that proved we were thriving. It didn't matter that the credit cards were maxed out or that one winter, the gas got shut off, leaving us huddled under blankets. As long as the neighbors saw a new patio set or a shiny car in the driveway, we were doing okay. That was their mantra, their script, and God help you if you didn't stick to it. Money came and went like seasons. Some years, we ate cereal for dinner, and my parents would vanish to work late, code for dodging bills or scrambling for cash. Other years, they'd splurge on a big-screen TV or a car we didn't need, acting like they'd cracked the code to endless prosperity. I remember asking my dad, at 8 years old, why we didn't save when things were good. He laughed, ruffled my hair, and said, "You don't need to save if you know how to hustle." That word, hustle, was his gospel, a catch-all for the schemes and shortcuts that define their lives. It wasn't just about money. It was about control, about keeping up the facade. My sister, Karen, was their golden child, the one who inherited their charm and their knack for bending the world to her will. She could walk into a room and make it hers, all smiles and charisma, while quietly draining everyone around her. They adored her, not because she was better, but because she was like them. Me? I was the boring one, the uptight one. The kid who mistook discipline for personality, as my mom once snapped during Thanksgiving dinner. That label stuck, and I leaned into it. If I couldn't be the favorite, I'd be the reliable one. The one who cleaned up their messes. When I was a teenager, I helped my mom navigate insurance claims after a fender bender she didn't report. In my 20s, I filled out school applications for Karen's kid when she forgot deadlines. When she lost her third job in a year, I'd send a check, not much, just enough to keep the lights on. I wasn't rich. I was a freelancer, scraping by on content writing gigs while raising 3 kids with Mark. But I gave because that's what you do for family, right? You help, even when it stings, even when every no gets twisted into selfishness. My parents and Karen had a way of framing my boundaries as betrayal, and I'd spent years dodging that guilt, giving just enough to avoid being the bad guy. Looking back, I see it clearly now. Being the responsible one in my family was like volunteering to steer a sinking ship. They didn't want help. They wanted cover, someone to prop up their illusions. I played along, thinking I was the stable one, the one who paid taxes on time and remembered sunscreen. But stability was a myth in a family that thrived on chaos. Their hustle wasn't just about money, it was about control, about keeping me tethered to their needs. I'd spent my life trying to earn their love by staying useful, reasonable, boring. And yet, there I was, driving away from the border with a bag of drugs in my trunk, courtesy of the people who raised me. The real kicker came 4 months before that trip. Karen's son, my nephew, was struggling, bullied at school, anxious, not fitting in. My parents called, their voices dripping with concern, to tell me about a private school they'd found. It was exclusive, expensive, life-changing, they said. They'd gotten him conditionally accepted. But they needed a deposit. Money they didn't have. Just a little help. My mom said, her tone soft but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. We'll pay you back. My stomach sank. I knew this dance. I'd seen it end in empty promises and overdrawn accounts. I loved my nephew, wanted the best for him, but I had 3 kids of my own, a mortgage, and a business that barely kept us afloat. I can't, I said, my voice steady but gentle, like I was defusing a bomb. We don't do private school. I'm sorry. They didn't yell. They just went cold. My mom's reply was a dagger. Of course. I forgot you have rules. Then silence. Weeks of it. Until the reunion came up, and suddenly they were all smiles again, acting like everything was fine, like they'd figured it out. I didn't question why they seemed so relaxed, why the people who'd been drowning in debt were suddenly waving us off with grins. I should have. That red duffel. Hand it over with a casual, won't fit in ours, was their plan all along. They didn't just betray me, they used my kids, my family as pawns in their hustle. As I drove, the pieces fell into place. I'd spent my life trying to be the good daughter, the one who showed up, who fixed things. And this was what they gave me in return. A trap, wrapped in a smile, tucked into my trunk. The kids' laughter from the back seat felt like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of something dark. I glanced at Mark, his face still grim, and I knew we were thinking the same thing. We'd come inches from losing everything. Not just our freedom, but the trust we'd built, the life we were fighting for. My parents hadn't just risked our safety, they'd gambled with our future. And I'd been too blind to see it coming. The gravel crunched under the SUV's tires as I drove, the red duffel in the trunk a silent passenger that weighed heavier than anything I'd ever carried. My mind was a storm, shock, betrayal, and a creeping dread that hadn't fully settled. Mark sat beside me, his silence as loud as my racing thoughts. We'd just seen the unthinkable, packets of drugs, stuffed into a bag my parents had casually handed us for a family reunion trip. They'd used us, their own daughter and grandkids, as pawns in some reckless scheme. The border was behind us now, and I was determined to keep it that way. But what now? We couldn't just drive forever, pretending the bag didn't exist. Mark's hand rested on his knee, steady but tense, and I knew he was waiting for me to decide our next move. Words felt useless, so I didn't speak. Instead, I turned the wheel toward my parents' house, an instinct more than a plan. Like my body knew what my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The road to their place was familiar, lined with the same sagging mailboxes and overgrown yards I'd seen since I was a kid. But it felt different now, like I was driving into a stranger's territory. Mark didn't question the direction. He just nodded, a silent agreement that this was where the bag belonged, not with us. Not near our kids. The weight of that decision settled between us, heavy but clear.
We didn't need to talk about it.
We both knew what my parents had done was a line crossed, a trust shattered. The idea of confronting them, yelling, demanding answers flickered in my mind, but it felt pointless. They'd twist it, deflect, make it my fault. I'd seen that playbook my whole life. Instead, we'd return their poison and walk away. No arguments, no explanations, just the truth laid bare in their own house. We pulled into their driveway. The afternoon sun glaring off the porch's chipped paint. Their front light was still on from the night before, a small detail that annoyed me more than it should have. Mark got out first, his movements deliberate, like he was handling something fragile and explosive at the same time. I followed, my sneakers soft on the pavement, and we met at the trunk. The kids stayed in the car. We didn't speak as we walked to the front door. Mark carried the bag, his grip tight, and I unlocked the door, pushing it open to the familiar smell of stale coffee and carpet cleaner. Like dropping off a delivery no one ordered. It wasn't dramatic, no slamming, no shouting, just a quiet act that screamed louder than words. This was their mess, not ours. I looked at Mark, and his eyes met mine, steady and sure. We didn't need to say it. This was the end of something. We turned, locked the door behind us, and walked back to the car. The click of the lock felt final, like a gate slamming shut. Back in the SUV, I started the engine, my hands steadier now, though my heart still raced. The kids didn't notice a thing. I didn't answer. Neither did Mark. We didn't need to hear their excuses, their fake concern, their inevitable "where are you?" or "what happened?" We knew what they'd say, and we knew what they'd done. The bag wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice, one they'd made without a second thought for us or our kids. The drive home was long, the miles stretching under a sky that refused to reflect the chaos inside me. I kept glancing at the phone, each missed call a tiny jab, but I didn't waver. This wasn't about anger. It was about survival. My parents had spent years pulling me into their orbit, their hustle, their lies. I'd been the fixer, the responsible one. And Sam in the back seat, so close to a border checkpoint with that bag, made my stomach lurch. I'd trusted my parents, not just with the bag, but with the idea that family meant something. To lay out every betrayal in words. We both knew what this meant, a line drawn, a boundary set. No more calls answered, no more favors given. My parents had always played the game of guilt, framing every no as selfishness, but this time, I wasn't playing. The duffel was back where it belonged, and so was the responsibility. As we drove, the phone kept buzzing. Each ignored call a step toward freedom. I wasn't sure what came next, confrontation, silence, or something else, but I knew one thing. We weren't carrying their weight anymore. The road ahead was ours. The red duffel bag left behind like a landmine we'd refused to carry. My phone kept buzzing, my mom, my dad, then my mom again, their names flashing on the screen like a warning I no longer needed. I didn't answer. Mark didn't either. We dropped their bag of betrayal back in their hallway, locked the door, and walked away, but the weight of what they'd done clung to me. My kids, Jake, Ellie, and Sam, were safe in the back seat, giggling over their tablet, oblivious to how close we'd come to disaster. That thought kept me grounded, but it also fueled a quiet rage. My parents hadn't just risked our freedom, They'd gambled with my children's future, and I wasn't sure I could face them without losing it. But I knew they'd come for us, one way or another. People like them always do, armed with excuses and a smile that doesn't reach their eyes. It took a week for them to show up. No call, no text, just the doorbell ringing on a Wednesday afternoon. Sharp and uninvited. I knew it was them before I even checked, like you can smell rain before it falls. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me to keep the kids out of it. There they were, standing on my porch in suburban Ohio, my mom with her practiced grin, my dad with his hands in his pockets, like they were here to borrow sugar. "We wanted to check in," my mom said, her voice warm but hollow, the kind of tone you'd use to pitch a timeshare. My dad chimed in, "Thought we could clear the air." I crossed my arms and waited, letting their words hang. I wasn't going to make this easy. My mom hesitated, then said, "We didn't know how much you understood." That was it, the tell. They knew I knew, but they were fishing. Testing how far they could spin this. "You mean the bag?" I said, my voice low, cutting through their charade. "The one you put in our car with your grandkids in the back seat?" My mom swallowed, her smile faltering. My dad tried to keep his voice even. "It wasn't going to be a big deal," he said. "Just something to help with the debt, that's all." My mom jumped in, her tone softer, almost pleading. "We were desperate. You wouldn't help." There it was, the same old playbook. Flip the blame, make me the villain for saying no to their endless demands. I didn't yell, though I wanted to. Instead, I leaned in, my words slow and deliberate. "You didn't just betray me. You risked our lives, mine, Mark's, your grandkids." They didn't respond. My dad shifted his weight. Uncomfortable. My mom blinked, trying to summon tears that wouldn't come. "We're done," I said. "Don't call.
Don't come here.
You don't get to see the kids. This is over." My mom opened her mouth, ready with her usual line, "You'll come around," but I turned, walked inside, and locked the door. The click felt like a gavel. I thought that was the end, but they weren't done. 3 days later, I pulled up to the kids' school for pickup, my mind still spinning from the week's chaos. The teacher met me at the gate, her face casual, like she was sharing the weather.
"Oh, they were already picked up," she said.
"Your parents said you'd ask them to." My stomach dropped, a cold, sickening plunge. I don't remember driving to their house. Just the blur of traffic and the engine's hum. When I got there, it was like stepping into a twisted carnival. Balloons bobbed in the living room, candy wrappers littered the floor, and a Lego set, fancier than anything we'd ever bought, sat half-assembled. Jake, Ellie, and Sam were glowing, sugar-high and clutching new toys, laughing like they were at Disneyland. My mom was slicing cake, her smile wide and fake. My dad was on the floor, building something that beeped, playing the doting grandpa. It wasn't love, it was strategy. A calculated move to buy the kids' affection and undermine me. I stood in the doorway, my breath shallow, trying to hold on to the calm I'd fought for. This wasn't about the kids, it was about control. My parents had never spoiled them like this before, not in years of birthdays or Christmases. But now, after we'd cut them off, they were Santa Claus with a credit card, weaponizing affection to pull the kids back into their orbit. "We're leaving," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. The kids whined, confused. "But why?" Ellie asked, clutching a stuffed bear. My mom's sing-song voice followed. "Grandma said we could stay." I locked eyes with her, my gaze hard. "We're leaving now," I repeated. The kids dragged their feet, but I herded them to the car, their new toys in tow. I let them keep the bear, the Legos, because taking them away would make me the bad guy, and I wasn't giving my parents that win. As we walked out, my mom called after me, her voice soft but venomous. "They'll come back to us. They always do." She said it like a fact, like she still held the strings. I didn't respond, just buckled the kids in and drove away. That night, sitting on our bed, I looked at Mark, my voice steady but final. "We have to leave." He didn't ask why. He knew. My parents weren't just a problem, they were a threat, one that could show up at school, at the park, anywhere, with candy and lies. You mentioned North Carolina, I said, remembering his company's office there, his parents nearby, stable and drama-free. I wasn't ready then. I am now. He nodded, his hand finding mine. The transfer's still open, he said. Good, I replied. Let's take it. No tears, no drama, just a decision to break free, to build a life where my kids could grow without the shadow of my parents' chaos. We'd burn the bridge and not look back. Months later, we were settling into North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Mountains framing our new life like a promise. The air smelled of pine and possibility, a far cry from the tension that once choked our days. Our kids, Jake, Ellie, and Sam, were thriving in new schools, their laughter filling our modest rental house. Mark's parents, warm and steady, lived just 20 minutes away, offering help without strings. We'd vanished from Ohio without a trace, blocking numbers and cutting ties, not out of spite but survival. My parents' arrest came as no surprise. An email from my sister confirmed it. They'd tried smuggling drugs across the border themselves, caught with enough to earn 4 years each. I felt no pity, only relief. Their choices were theirs, not mine. Setting boundaries wasn't easy, but it was freedom. I don't flinch at second chances anymore. I'm too busy building a life where guilt doesn't call the shots. My kids are safe, Mark sleeps soundly, and I'm finally free to be more than the responsible one. What do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and join our journey for more stories that hit home.